Hey guys, welcome back. Today I want to talk to you about some different situation that has been happening or has happened already, and that is the fact that Bill Cosby is free. I know a lot of people don't agree with him. I know a lot of people kind of say, yeah, he should stay locked up. But what I was surprised is how the justice system created a situation that made him trust the person. It backfired on him. They locked him up. And now that is actually the reason why he's out. Because they did something gangster to somebody that maybe deserved prison time, but they did it illegally. But what surprises me that a lot of people are like, you know what? He should be locked up still. And I'm like, no. You don't lock people with illegal ways of just locking them up because you just like it. Let's go to the video where Andrew Schulz and the whole party explain it very detailed because I didn't even know exactly what the heck was happening.
Cosby has been released. Okay, Mark, quickly tell us why he's released.
All right, basically in 2005, Bill Cosby was in a civil case with a woman, and because he chose to do the civil case,
He or she?
because Bill Cosby, the prosecutors basically put him in the civil case because they didn't think they could get a criminal conviction in an actual criminal case at the state level.
It is much easier to get a conviction in a civil case than a criminal case. OJ was convicted civilly, which means he has to pay money. Civil case is all about paying money.
Right.
But he was not convicted, as we know, criminally. Right. So the prosecution said, listen, you ain't going to convict this guy. There's not enough information to convict this guy in a criminal case, but I think we can get him in a civil case or you guys can settle.
And at the time, I don't think there was as many allegations against him.
Yeah.
There was a few, and this was the main one, I guess, that they brought towards him.
And an important thing is settling. There's not really settling in a criminal case. There is if you get offered like a deal, like a plea deal, but you're admitting guilt.
Right.
Settling in the civil case is not necessarily an admission.
No.
Right.
The case can just stop. Maybe sometimes it's part of it. I remember Kobe's civil case. He had to like write a letter that basically said, I didn't know that that's what it was. If I can see why she felt it was that.
Yeah.
Okay, continue.
So basically, the rule with the DA that they brought to him, the deal they brought to him was said, basically, if you go through the civil case, we're not going to prosecute you on criminal charges. But
that's the deal.
In order to go through the civil case, he basically loses his right to the Fifth Amendment. So he's not allowed to plead
the fifth.
Yeah,
And
he's not allowed to plead the fifth.
Pleading the fifth is basically you cannot what is it?
Self-incriminate.
Yeah, you cannot self-incriminate. So if you're on the stand, you could potentially give information that could put you behind bars or convict you, right?
Yep.
So you're allowed to say, I plead the fifth. You don't even fucking talk.
Yeah.
He's not allowed to do that in the civil case. So
Right.
therefore, he's allowed to go to the stand. They're allowed to ask him questions.
Yeah.
So they can ask him questions, and then the answers to those questions might be used
Against him in court.
Against him in court in the future, but they can't because they made the agreement that they never bring him back to court.
I think he's obligated under oath to say and to answer the lawyer's questions.
Whatever he was going to say in this situation cannot be used in the future to charge him criminally, right? And that is what they're going to do, because the fact that I told him, hey, this is a civil thing, whatever you're going to use is going to be used for that reason. It will not be used for criminal charges. And then something happens and they actually used it.
Boom.
So basically they asked him, did you give women Quaaludes at this party in the 90s or whatever?
Right.
And he said, yes, I gave women Quaaludes.
Right. And of course, the story always been with Cosby's, he's drugging women, he's giving them pills, whatever. Maybe they don't even know he's giving pills. Obviously, we've all heard the cappuccino story. Girls are passing out and he's having sex with them. That's been the allegations the whole time. He has refuted these allegations the whole time. But here is evidence of him admitting to giving drugs to women. And now it's consistent with what all these women have said, which is, he made me pass out and had sex with me while I'm asleep.
Yeah.
Right? Basically have all the information.
Yeah.
Now, Cosby's argument has always been, we all just took drugs. That's what we did. We were at parties. I wasn't giving them drugs so I could do this. We were all just doing drugs. That's his argument the whole time.
Yep.
Okay.
So then years later, the new Montgomery County DA said that the DA in 2005 hadn't formally bound the state. So therefore, that non-prosecution agreement was just a public statement, but not any type of signed legal document.
So if an important person tells you something that's supposed to be binding by law, and then the same person can say, well, we didn't agree on anything, I didn't sign anything, so officially whatever you said is void. The fact that people just want to charge you as hard as possible and they can just deny specific thing they said previously, that's freaking dangerous. And I know If Cosby actually did this, he should be locked up for whatever reason if they have the evidence. But you have to do it the right way. Because whenever somebody does something to prosecute somebody, even if they believe he is right or wrong, especially in this age, because whatever you say, you're the wrong person. I've seen the most leftist people called right wing because they just said something they were not supposed to do. Now imagine if you're in that perspective of certain people and this weird law comes for you. That's scary. Because the fact they can promise you certain stuff and just denies it and want to send you to prison, it's freaking dangerous. The judge has to let that go through, knowing the facts. But that's the messed up part of the whole situation. Some people are like, no, he still deserves to be locked up. And I kind of get it, but I'm surprised they went such a long way to prosecute him for something that was outside of the law, and people still watch, but he still should be locked up. I know he has to be, but whoever did it previously was so eager to win, now they lost again.
The state tried to pull some slick shit.
Yeah.
They're like, yo, we made you an offer, but since there was no signature, it's not real.
Yeah.
Or I think they might even said, just judging by that, it was just a public announcement, which is a verbal contract is also binding.
Right.
Well,
so they try to Stormy Daniels, basically.
Well, it might have been, but it wasn't that normalized. Because I remember back in the day, whatever you say to somebody, it has to be written in an email or it's not verbally binding at all. That actually changed with time because they just realized it's just kind of unfair for a lot of people that don't know how the law works. So if they record you, you're in trouble. Then again, if you're recording somebody in secret and they don't know about it, it's also against the law. So it's actually quite a messy situation.
Basically.
Yeah.
It's
It depends.
You sign an NDA, motherfucker.
It depends on if it is public, like if it is legally binding or not, just a public statement.
Right.
So originally it wasn't legally binding, which is why they were able to prosecute him and charge him with however many years in prison he got.
Then Cosby's legal team said, yo, it is.
Yeah, exactly.
And then recently,
Today, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court came out and said, for the reasons detailed below, we hold that the prosecutor makes an unconditional promise of non-prosecution. So therefore, the case is dismissed, more or less. So it's not a verdict on guilt or innocence, but just the case has to get thrown out.
And what's interesting is he's still convicted.
Yeah.
The case has now been thrown out, but he still got convicted. And based on the evidence,
Yeah.
the jury felt like he was a rapist.
Evidence that they got both from the women that were against him, but also that he said in this 2005 case that couldn't be used against him.
And he would never be on the stand if it was a criminal case in the first place. So they're trying to say some of the evidence that you use should never have been used in court.
Right.
That being said, because they had this fucking evidence, they concluded that he was guilty of rape.
Yeah.
Right? So it's a very tricky thing. Because of our justice system, they have to let him out. They have to release him, even though they feel he's guilty.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a messy situation. I'm sorry, man. The dude was my freaking hero. When I watched him when I was little, I really wanted to be like him because he was a gangster family man. I just did not know he was so powerful that he also thought he deserved a little extra pum pum. And I was like, damn, I didn't expect that. Now, a lot of people wish he's still locked up, but he's not, because you did it the wrong way. It doesn't matter about the years, man. It will come back, find you, and bite you. And the older you get and the harder it bites, the worse your... I want to die in peace, man. It's so important. The amount of L's that I've taken to die in peace or enjoy my life is humongous. And the only reason I can be happy about my L's is I don't go public with it. You know why? Because you shouldn't know my L's. You should know I've taken them and I kept going forward. I don't need your validation of, oh my God, you took an L.
That's crazy. And I think some people are looking at this and they're not as, unfortunately, this is kind of sad to say, but like they're not as concerned because of his age, right? You're looking at a 78-year-old man or an 83-year-old man who's blind and shit, right? Imagine this was a 25-year-old rapist.
Oh.
Now a rapist on the street.
Yeah. Yeah. It
Or
is
a
different. That's a
25-year-old
different thing.
convicted rapist. Even if he said he didn't do it or nothing, blah, blah, blah. But with the information that they had, they convicted that 25-year-old. Now he's back on the street. He's back in your neighborhood.
Yeah.
It's going to be a different energy.
Yeah.
There's going to be a very different energy.
Yeah.
Imagine something like that happened to my daughter. And we wanted to convict him in a ninja way instead of outside of the law. And then he gets out. And the fact that even people vouch for this, that we need to be able to lock people up in this way, if that kind of laws get passed, that we just morally this is wrong and you should be locked up, if you do that, the next time when you do something morally wrong just because you think a little different, they're gonna come for you. That's why I never vouch for something that I feel can come back for me, even if I'm not on the dinner plate. Because I know once that food is gone, the next one is gonna be the most delicious one on the plate. And trust me, the way I have my opinion right now, usually I'm one of them.
The Supreme Court of Pennsylvania said, "We hold that when a prosecutor makes an unconditional promise of non-prosecution, and when the defendant relies upon that guarantee to the detriment of his constitutional right not to testify, the principle of fundamental fairness that undergirds due process of law in our criminal justice system demands the promise be enforced." And so Cosby was out of prison, and he was freed the same day.
A prosecutor made a promise, but then just broke the promise. A law-abiding dude that knows the law made a promise that they can break. Do you really believe I want to live in a city or a town or whatever that they can break promises, law-abiding promises, to get me convicted because they thought I did something morally wrong? Even if I didn't rape, I would never want to be in. No.
Of note, there didn't have to be an agreement between the prosecutor and the defendant. The prosecutor just has to make an assurance to the defendant that the defendant then relies upon to his detriment. And as the court pointed out, if you felt differently, if you feel that the defendant should then say to the prosecutor, "I don't trust you, and so I'm not going to listen to you, I'm still going to invoke the Fifth Amendment," this is now encouraging people not to trust prosecutors, which is precisely the opposite of the result you wish to obtain. Okay, so the entire world has gone crazy about this because, once again, they have gone to a bad man got out of jail as opposed to the courts are not interested in whether somebody is good or bad. The courts are interested in the process of due process. And this does run roughshod through our system right now. Right now in the United States, there seems to be, and it is the prevailing notion, that neutral rights can be dispensed with so long as we don't like you.
That's the problem. I'm not even joking. It's a very dangerous situation that people don't even take in consideration. Stop passing stupid laws to get people convicted because you want to win, because then these laws are going to come back for you too.
And so long as we don't like you, rights should not apply to you. We see this in freedom of association. We see this in freedom of speech. We see this in due process. If you're Brett Kavanaugh and we have decided we do not like you, then due process concerns are of no validity and we should not be worried about them at all. A single accusation without any supporting evidence should be enough to get you tossed in terms of consideration from the Supreme Court. If you are a person who utters a slur, and this really should not be enough to finish your career, we still say, freedom of speech really should not apply to you. Freedom of speech shouldn't apply to you because you said bad things. Well, again, freedom of speech is a broad individual right, and it does protect you. It should protect you. And I'm not just talking about legally here. In terms of due process, you are talking legally when you're talking about Cosby. But I'm talking about the generalized perception that people deserve a due process, which is both social and legal. That needs to be preserved, especially for people you don't like. The same thing is true of freedom of speech and so-called cancel culture. Right? There does have to be a generalized attitude that you're allowed to say what you want to say. And that doesn't mean that people can't react to you socially. It does mean the notion that free speech is the danger, which has been used as sort of a club against social media lately. Right? Social media, the left says, is bad because it allows people we don't like to speak freely. And so we should toss Donald Trump, for example, from Facebook and from Twitter. That's really dangerous stuff. Once you start believing that rights that adhere to you as an individual and pre-exist government no longer exist because we don't like what you're saying, now you have entered the realm of tyranny. So did Bill Cosby deserve on a moral level to go free? Bill Cosby, on a moral level, deserves to be in jail for the rest of his life. But on a legal level, right, and on a due process level, and on a societal level, Bill Cosby should not be in jail based on the prosecution of his trial. By the way, there's serious questions about that trial with regard to allowing some 19 women to testify against him on the basis of prior experiences with him outside the statute of limitations. Harvey Weinstein is going to make the same case.
Even if you're trying to fight people by law and try to win people by law, the fact that you're trying to do that way, it's actually tyranny. The fact that you can just scream and point out something somebody did and they're worse morally, so the same laws of freedom of speech don't apply to you. So I'm gonna devalue your whole statement, give you less opportunity, and then you know what? The fact that you can speak and defend yourself is not even allowed, and I'm gonna lock you up? Nah, man, miss me with that. I'm just surprised. And I take these things seriously. I study my stuff and I try to defend myself correctly. And also, whenever I speak to my wife, I always tell her there's a certain way that you have to speak. Because once you say specific words, the people on the left, usually, which sometimes happen, they will put you in a category that you don't have the same rights. When they dressed my son like a princess, my wife was furious. She's like, why would they do something like that? And I told her, don't say anything. Pick up your son, ask him, how did you have fun today? And my son replied, yes, I had fun. I dressed like a king. And that's it. He didn't process it. He didn't see my wife angry, and we just forget about it and we went on with our lives. The thing is, what about the other people that don't have that story? What about the other people that explode and want to defend for their kids and say, hey, you're not supposed to do that? You could be in that category. You can be suddenly be homophobic. You suddenly can have less right, no freedom of speech, and who knows, maybe be locked up for saying the wrong thing. I don't know. That's why these laws, I think they're really important, how you want to see it and how you want to define it. Anyway, let me know what you think about the video. Like, comment, share, and see you guys next time. Peace.
Don't get me wrong, ma cosa kita bong. Buta fire na mi blonde, kush hash, purple skunk, criollo, colombici, jam jam, turloqueta, verdeta, welcome.